Hey guys, it's Hollis. Thank you for joining me on the first episode of the Can We Get Much Higher podcast. If you have seen my YouTube channel before, have subscribed or know who I am, I used to have covers and other YouTube videos on here, but I decided to take them down because what I really want to focus on is I want to be doing a weekly podcast. I want to be doing music reviews slash rankings, some proper covers, some good ones, and here and there maybe just some other music related videos. But enough about that. Let's stop boring you guys. Onto the podcast. All right. Hello guys. This is the first episode of the Can We Get Much Higher interview slash podcast, the TSB Hollis Music Podcast. With me on my right, we have Roby, who is one half and the founder of the shoegaze, dream pop, IDM, glitch hop, experimental project band Sweet Trip. How are you doing?
I'm doing alright. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you. So obviously I know a little bit about you, but could you just tell us a little bit about you, what you do in Sweet Trip?
Yeah. So I guess I write a lot of songs, play guitar, do bass, programming, production, mixing, pretty much everything that you hear in a Sweet Trip.
Yeah.
That goes for me. Yeah, I've been doing it for over 20 years or so.
Yeah. So it's a pleasure to have you, especially as the debut episode. As this started off as I wanted to do it as a school project, because I'm in lockdown right now, because I'm in Australia. So our teacher said it's gonna be boring what we're doing. We're doing like Baroque music stuff. So instead, we're gonna you can do something related to music, something that you love. I originally chose I'm going to listen to 101 albums and musically analyze them. And then I realized after like 10 albums in, I'm like, this is like 140,000 words. This is like PhD level. I'm not writing more. So I changed to trying to find a musician to do an interview with. And I have one. And I've also asked a couple other people and they're kind of down to do it. So, but it's great to have you on the first one. So how have you been recently? Like, you been good?
I've been alright. Yeah. Just hanging in there.
Yeah. So I've also seen you do interviews with Rate Your Music, Sony Mic, KTSW 89.9, and a couple YouTube channels like Oddball Frequency, which is one I watched yesterday. This was asked 2 years ago, but they asked, "What are you doing like musically? Like, what are you doing? Like, are you doing a project, something like that?" I was asked 2 years ago, and you said that you were doing writing, you were preparing for a new project, and obviously, that project had come out with a Tiny House and Secret Speeches, which came out earlier this year. What are you doing now? Are you like preparing for like live shows? Are you preparing for another project? Yeah, tell us about that.
So right now, it's kind of a mixed bag of a bunch of things. Trying to do some remixes from other people and trying to get that done as quickly as possible because I've been lagging a lot on that. I'm also doing kind of revisiting some old 4-track demos from 20 plus years ago and see what's.
I saw that you guys released like an archival EP in like 2015, like a 4-track EP. So I didn't know about that until I re-looked up your account yesterday just to get some details and whatever. And so I had to listen to it yesterday. It's interesting, yeah.
Cool, yeah. I lost most of my 4-track cassettes, so but I still have maybe like a handful or less than a handful of cassettes that has some stuff that is quite okay. And I've been kind of like choosing and picking things that sound good and kind of like working on them or reviewing them again instead of just like remixing them again. From the 4-track. So that's another thing that I'm working on. And what else? There's some mixes that I am doing some kind of like repair work
Yeah.
for possible future releases that I can't say much more about. And I also play guitar with my dear friends from a band called Starry Eye Cadet. They're based in San Francisco, the Bay Area. And I've been playing guitar for them as well, and mixing and mastering their work, and that's been a lot of fun. It's cool to like do music things that are not like my things.
Just
It's just
yeah. But still focusing like on music, but just like not specifically your stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. It's very
well, I
liberating.
mean, I can relate. School projects I finish early and then help other people and then do their work. No, I'm joking. Yeah. So, who do you, I'm a massive music nerd. I'm sure you listen to a lot of music daily. Who have you recently like started listening to, and what do you normally just listen to on a daily basis?
Okay, so for the first question, I really haven't been listening to anything new for quite a while. I will say maybe like a year, maybe a little over a year. Um, with the caveat that every once in a while I try to do a live stream DJ mix thing on
Yeah.
Twitch, and then for that I do have to like go back and listen to things that I like and pick things that I like and
Mm,
try to discover new things that kind of match the genre or the style
yeah.
or maybe just the flow of the DJ mix. So
I
that's
saw
like the
that.
only.
I saw like on your Instagram that you're doing 100 favorite metal songs or something later. Is that right? Or on your Twitch?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, that is right. And actually, thanks for reminding me about that because I completely forgot. um, but yeah, so yeah, when I'm trying to prepare a Twitch DJ stream thing, I do try to go back and listen to things and try to discover new things just to like spike it up a little bit just for me.
Yeah.
But other than that, I haven't been listening to a lot of new music and a lot of new bands. I know a lot of new bands by name, and I know how popular they are and things like that. I just haven't had the inclination to actually
Yeah.
invest the time.
Yeah.
Um, and when I'm not listening to new music and I just want to like listen for comfort and nostalgia and anything like that,
Yeah.
there's really a range of things that I might listen to. Things that I might consider personal classics, like shoegaze classics from
Yeah.
Slow Dive.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, a band like
Yeah.
bands like Moose and Lush. I often go back to the oh god, I'm blanking out the analog. No, not the analog. The Analord series by AFX Twin.
Oh yeah. I love FX.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's always a very comforting collection of a billion tracks, but they're all really good. I do that. May listen to some classical music. May listen to some classic rock.
Yeah.
Been trying to listen to reggae a lot because I haven't been
Yeah.
listening to reggae for a while. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
a
yeah.
bunch of other things.
So obviously, your music is quite experimental, draws in a lot of different aspects from different genres. As I said, as I named before, intelligence dance music. There's a lot of shoegaze, dream pop, alt rock in there, and it's just overall quite. And there's ambient, there's techno. It's quite a broad bunch of genres. So who did you take inspiration from as a younger artist going into music like this?
Um, it's kind of it's a bit of a complicated answer. I'll try to be as concise as I can. Um, I when I was younger, I grew up listening to metal. A lot of
Yeah.
like what was popular metal in the '80s, and even though at the time I was just like metal and nothing else, I don't really like anything else other than metal. I
Yeah.
think that somehow, interestingly enough, I think that metal music, metal composition, sort of like made me appreciate other types of music
Oh yeah. For
different
sure.
differently. And so,
Yeah.
like like with metal, you can kind of like dissect metal in many aspects. You know, you have the rhythm, you have bass, you have guitars, you have the composition, you have lyrics, and then you have like guitar solos and things like that. And you can sort of like with those little pieces, you can parallel those little pieces with other pieces of other types of music, and just sort of like start synthesizing all these things that you're like exposing, that I'm exposing myself with, along with metal, like metal being like the template for things, and then all this stuff is like, oh my god, like this techno lead is it's you know, it's really cool, and it kind of falls into like the guitar solo lead in some random metal, or like the drums so heavy on this metal song, and the drums are so heavy on this like IDM track. It's like this is really cool. I see the parallels here. And a lot of metal music is kind of based on minor keys as well. And so like that has affected my I guess my musical personality, because I do like minor keys. I do like that comes with it. So I think that for me, you know, once I started branching out from metal and started getting into I will say like things like The Cure and Sonic.
So like the more classic rock, the more yeah,
exactly. I started seeing parallels, and those parallels helped me appreciate these other types of music, and I just sort of like combine it all, because I just it was just like I don't know, like so many doors being open to me. And I don't know if that answers the question, but
No, that's great. So you're obviously a bit of a metalhead, right? I mean, my dad is quite the metalhead. Like, I don't know. That's pretty much all he's listened to. I've tried getting him into like he's open to listening to other stuff, and he's like fine with this. Like, he loves metal, like number one. He loves prog rock. Which actually, I found a lot of similarities with well, obviously because metal is like a subgenre of rock. I mean, it came out with, you know, Black Sabbath pretty much innovated the whole thing with their self-titled debut. You know, they actually made that album 12 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, but I see a lot of also comparisons between, like, obviously the obvious sounds like prog rock and then prog metal. So have you heard of the band Pain of Salvation?
No, I have not. No.
They're like amazing prog metal, prog rock band. They know how to mix. Well, the lead guy, Daniel Gildenlau, they're like obviously a Swedish band. I mean, a lot of the great metal bands come from Sweden and, like, you know, the Norwegian areas, Scandinavian. Sorry. But yeah, I agree. Like, there's a lot of metal itself is also just a subgenre of rock, but you can also see how each genre kind of just takes stuff from itself. Yeah, like, you know, you see aspect, like that's why you don't, like, with a lot of albums, you don't just give it one genre. You also have its little, you know, it's got its secondary genres, right? Like, it has little spots of I don't know, let's take Halika for example. It's mostly primarily it's like ambient techno and stuff, but you also still have like early references for like shoegaze, and it's still got the technicality of some IDM music, and it's just but yeah, I think it's interesting how you know, I think people can actually, after you listen to a lot more music, you actually notice that there's a lot of similarities. Same thing with hip hop, right? Like, hip hop completely I'm a hip hop head, right? Like, I started off as hip hop. I still am. I still love hip hop the most. But I love how they took it from blues and reggae and jazz and a lot of the music that originated with, you know, the African cultures and stuff like that, and they turned it into this dirty, political, hardcore, you know, slamming hip hop, right? And then originally that turned into all its different subgenres. You know, now you have stuff like conscious hip hop. Now you have stuff like trap, which also, you know, has that EDM influence and chill wave. But enough about me rambling. Now now that you're actually a more experienced artist, answer might be the same or whatever, but now that you're a more experienced artist, you're 20 plus years into the game, who do you now take experience from as a more highly praised and experienced artist?
Ooh, yikes. Uh, really, no one, like, no contemporaries that I can think of. And that's not. I'm not trying to be
Egotistical or whatever.
egotistical or close-minded or anything like that.
There's no
I
one
think
that
that
has the sound like you. Like I was gonna bring that up as well. Like no one that has obviously there's people who are doing shoegaze and like and dream pop mixes, but like the whole I feel like you take it on to like a different level. Like it's not just like dream pop. It's like this most lush, eclectic, ethereal dream pop that you'll ever hear. And then it's like
thank you.
yeah. No. So you made the group. You made the group.
Yeah, but the thing is, yeah, sorry.
No. You go. You go.
I was gonna say that, again, I don't have any contemporaries that I can get feedback from, and that's not because that's not because I want to be egotistical or close-minded or anything like that. I just like, it's more of a time management type of thing where I haven't really like put in the effort to do the homework to see what's out there, things like that. And at the same time, I do wonder, like, I think that for the 20 plus years that I've been doing Sweet Trip, I've always wondered. Well, I always had this thing in mind, like shoegaze and dream pop just blends itself well.
Like you could see that with or just alt rock. Like a lot of the genres just managed to work together. Like shoegaze and dream pop, obviously Slow Dive did that with Souvlaki, and also later on in their career. My Bloody Valentine was starting to do that near the MBV and the EPs. You also see people like Fishmans. You know who they are, right? Yeah.
I know who they are.
Yeah, they were working. They were using dream pop, but then they were also using like dub and reggae, and I think alt rock is, if you can manage to blend some of the genres just perfectly, it just works like magic. You just got to figure out which genres you really want to experiment with, I guess.
Yeah, and it's and also like not only figuring out which genres are gonna work well, but you also have to have a personal investment in those genres to make it work well. You can't really just like this is my personal opinion, but you can't just really like have a light bulb moment and say like I'm gonna mix this with that and hope that it's gonna work out in the like years or so that you try to make it work. You actually have to have a personal investment in the things that you love to blend them together, to be able to blend them together in a way that sounds like yourself that also sounds not relevant but cohesive.
So throughout the timeline of Sweet Trip, you've released four main studio albums. There's also the Seen and Unseen album, but four studio albums and two like main EPs. I'm sure there are other EPs that are a lot lower, but the two main ones are Allura and the Outtakes, alright? So all of them receiving critical acclaim and being certified into the Music Nerd Essentials. I will get into the releases a bit more later, like just asking a couple things about the releases. But I want to know, what is your personal favorite out of the four albums, or if one of the EPs are your favorite?
I think definitely A Tiny House is my favorite. Just because it came out of a period. I don't know, like not to get not to get too much into details, but it came out in a period that was really magical for me. Really magical, really emotional, and the whole record it's basically a one big long love letter to someone.
Yeah.
And being so there's like a lot of layers happening with that record, and that's why I consider it my favorite. One is making music again as Sweet Trip for the first time in many years.
Yeah.
Number two, being able to like be filled with all these emotions and have all these emotions just like pour out into music. And at the end, I think it's a pretty decent record. So I consider that my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it would make sense, obviously. Because when asked, a lot of people also do choose their debut, and they're like, "Why?" Oh, because it's my it's not debut. Sorry, the most recent record, and they're like, "Why?" Oh, because I think it's the best. But obviously, I think it's good that you actually have a reason. Anyway, have you had any? Obviously, you're a great musician. You're a great producer. Have you had any professional musical lessons? Like if you're a younger kid, or someone around my age, around 15 or something. Did you have any professional training with like guitar or actual production work?
Not really. I think when I went to college, when I went to college, I took 2 semesters of electronic music, of an electronic music class, and that exposed me to using samplers and analog synthesizers, digital synthesizers, and effects modules, and using a computer for sequencing things. And I did get a lot out of that. But it was just 2 semesters, and then after that, I just like did it on my own, just try to save up as much money as I could and get as much gear as I could. But other than that, no, not really. As far as like guitar and bass and things like that, back in the '90s, there used to be like guitar magazines that had like tabs in the middle. You can learn
tutorials and stuff like that for like
yeah.
Right,
Yeah, exactly. So I bought I bought a handful of those magazines just to learn like songs that I liked at the time, and chord shapes and blah blah blah. And that's kind of like how I got my fingers to do what I wanted them to do. And then it's just kind of like wing it after that.
Yeah. Honestly, okay, I mean, I still do professional singing training. I've been doing that for like 5-6 years. And I
Awesome.
used to do guitar training. As you can see, there's the acoustic guitar. I started off as electric. The electric's around the music room. We have like it's still it's next to the kitchen and the living table, so it's perfect for drums.
Awesome.
So I've been doing, and then I stopped doing professional guitar training a year ago because I wanted to focus on my production, because I'm trying to, I'm learning a lot of producing. So I would say I'm a good producer, and a fairly good singer. But also, I think I still want to do guitar, but I think in what I want to do, guitar is the least important out of the 3 main. Like I can also play bass and stuff like that, but I mean, there's bass stations, there's like, you've got and I've got the keyboard there, so I mean, you can just whack on a song and make it as realistic as possible. But anytime I do guitar, I normally just plug in my guitar and just do something random. But yeah. Talking about my music, what challenges do you think are there for a modern musician with the introduction, obviously, in 2000, file sharing and streaming became available. Spotify came out a bit later than that. You have YouTube and Apple Music. What do you think are the problems with that? With now streaming, as it now has affected like labels. Because I watched this thing they used to do like 85-15 for streaming, but the artists get all the profits for live and whatever. But now, because streaming gets you less record sales, right? They have also started to try and also take money out of their live shows and stuff like that. Do you think that's a real, like, is that a real problem for young musicians, and should they go independent, or should they just stick down the traditional route?
Um, no, I don't really think they should go through the traditional route at this point. I think that traditional route just doesn't work in this day and age. I think that that said, it really depends. I think that you could probably have the most control out of your own music if you do everything yourself, if you self-release everything yourself. The caveat is that you do have to put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
You no longer have you no longer have like something that resembles a marketing team or a record label promoting your stuff. So you basically have to do everything yourself. If you're like a one person band, that's quite a lot of work. I think that at the same time, like the old, one part of the old model was media exposure. And so like media exposure in the 90s and the early 2000s, it involved TV with music videos. It involved having like ads and some sort of like mention in magazines and things like that. And publication at that time was very key to kind of like propelling your music to more people, to a higher level. And that really doesn't exist anymore. I mean, you have things like, back in the early 2000s or whenever Pitchfork first started, Pitchfork was really relevant. And, a good review on Pitchfork meant that you could probably sell like 1,000 more records in that month or in that year. And Pitchfork doesn't have that impact anymore.
No,
so
obviously, because it's also most people. Well, yeah, it's people just see it for the score now. A lot of people don't really look at the review. They're just like, "Oh, cool, it's a 7.5 or something like that."
Right, exactly. And then,
No, go.
And then also, and because the whole Pitchfork media exposure is just kind of like out of the water and becoming more and more irrelevant, in my opinion. And also like a lot of people, the opinion, this is also the same opinion of a lot of people that I know. Social media obviously has replaced that by a very large percentage, but that also means that you as the artist control your own social media persona and world, and therefore you are the one who has to be marketing yourself as best as you can in those mediums, and it is quite a lot of work. I'm pretty sure that there are some labels out there that do try to like come up with a different model that can service the artist as best as they can. I know that our label Darla does that.
Sorry, quick question. How long have you been with Darla? Is it since like first release? Because I know
since first release, 98.
Yeah. Cool.
You like it does take a lot of work to do your homework if you don't want to do a self-release album or EP or whatever, and you want to find someone who's going to do the work for you, like a record label, but that's also going to give you the best return balance that sits well with you. Those are just things to consider. If you're going to self-release, then just be market yourself and promote yourself as best as you can, and play a lot of shows.
Yeah. Or after I end the show, I'd also like to ask you a couple things about just my music and just ask a couple things, confirmational things, I guess you could say. All right. Albums. Maybe my favorite thing on this earth. I do love music. Hang on, I'm gonna fix this up. Hang on.
Alright.
It's a bit slanted. So your 4 albums, I all love. My personal favorite is Velocity, Design, and Comfort. I mean, that's also a lot of people's favorites. But I don't know. That was the one that got me into you, obviously, because it's like your highest rated one. It's your highest ranked on like Rate Your Music and like album of the year and stuff. So I'm just gonna go into all 4 of the albums and just kind of just get a couple questions. Just yeah. So Halika, the debut, a more ambient techno, dream pop, neo psychedelia, a lot different to actually a lot of your later works. When realizing that when you had the original 4 members, Valerie, who is the other duo member, Viet Lee, Aaron, and yourself, how did it feel going into a debut album with such limited software? And I saw this on an interview. You were using an Atari computer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So using limited software, using an Atari computer, and experimenting into genres at such a young start.
It was it was kind of fun. I should do a quick correction. So Aaron didn't join the band until after Halika came out.
Right. Still the same year,
so
right?
Yeah, it was
Right.
me,
That's why. Yeah.
Valerie.
Because I saw a 98 and a lot of bands like it has like, because like okay, no, that does make sense. Yeah. No, carry on.
Yeah, no worries. So the thing is that so right before Halika, we were writing a lot of stuff, and all the stuff was really varied in styles and sounds and aesthetics and whatever. And so like during that before we became Sweet Trip, we were still a trio. It was just me, Valerie, and Viet. And we were trying to be more of a traditional kind of like, I don't know, spacey psychedelic shoegaze band of some sort. And we always struggled to find the right bass player to join in, someone with the right groove and the right sound and things like that. And so like we would always get together, we practice, we write songs, we share the songs, blah, 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 and this and that. And after practices, we just go into our own different worlds. And so I would go into my bedroom with my 4-track and I would just start recording whatever would come out.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that I was recording, it's like, they're separate. They're like so many genres, but one of those genres was basically the stuff that you hear in Halika. And it was, and that stuff was really liberating to do because I wasn't really thinking of, even though it is kind of like a genre in itself, it's kind of like shoegaze with electronic drop, ambient techno, whatever you want to call it. I wasn't really thinking about that. I was thinking more of like, I want to put an effect, I want to put a distortion pedal on my drum machine and see what happens, and then layer things with guitars and blah, blah, blah. So like everything else other than the Halika stuff was more focused, more of like, okay, maybe I want to write a shoegaze song so we can play a shoegaze song with the band. And then when that was done, I was just record whatever the hell I wanted to with drum machines and things like that. And that's the stuff that became Halika. And it was really, I think I remember this day clearly that I went back to practice some months later, and then I showed Valerie and Viet a cassette with some of those electronic sounding songs, and they said like, dude, like forget all the shoegaze stuff, forget all this and all that, we should just focus on these songs. And it's just like like forget looking for a bass player. Viet, who was a drummer, switched to bass, and that's kind of like how that came to be. Having very limited gear is very liberating, and that's something that up to this point I still kind of struggle. Well, I still try to pull back from all the stuff that I have, which is basically like plugins and things like that, and just try to like mimic the limitations that I used to have 20 years ago. And it's really liberating.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like limitations are liberating. It's such a paradox.
All right. So on to the next album, your 2003 album, Velocity Design Comfort, the one that got me in, as I said, my favorite out of the four main albums. So it's a bit of a more glitchy. There's a lot of, I would say there is a heavy aspect of like IDM. There's shoegaze, but you're still experimenting with sounds that not many artists that were not just popular, but any artists at the time were doing. I mean, as I said earlier, I could only pretty much like if I had to compare you anyone, like Slow Dive, shoegaze. But I now see a lot of artists like nowadays trying to not replicate your sound, but definitely taking inspiration off you. Like Grouper, FKA Twigs, and a Korean band that came out with their second album. It's quite a good album, Paranol. I've seen them experiment with more dreamy and alt rock sounds like you guys are doing. But why, out of all the genres, why these genres?
We were being very much exposed to a lot of the genres that you hear in VDC. We, up to that point, we, like shoegaze and dream pop and more dreamy, ambient, experimental things like that, and also drum and bass, rave culture, those techno, break beats, and all that stuff. That was those all those things were a huge part of our lives at that point. We would go, we would easily go to a shoegaze show, then go check out an indie rock band, and then maybe next weekend we'd go to a rave, and it was just like rave for hours.
Yeah.
So that was part of like that was part of our world.
Yeah.
So I think that it's just sort of like, I think that it just like implicitly made sense to combine all those genres together.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that like I was saying earlier, that I always thought that shoegaze is it's such an open-ended style or genre of music that you can do so much out of it. And that's something that we all realized early on, or maybe like after Halika came out, we were just like, this is like this shoegaze thing, it leads to a lot of other things. There's so many cool things you can do with it, other than just playing a straight drum beat with a bass line and just washing everything with reverb. Because a lot of these guitar sounds, they do sound like synthesizer sounds that you hear in electronic music
Today.
Even today, exactly. So it was sort of like we just said, it's kind of like making a stew. We just said, like, we have all these ingredients in our pantry, let's just like put it all in a pot and see what happens.
So if I'm just correct me if I'm wrong, so you introduced a new member with one leaving, is that right?
You mean
around preparation for the album?
In the preparation for the album, so Viet had left the band prior to recording that,
and then Aaron had come in and Rob came in, right?
So Aaron was still in the band after Viet left. Let's see. Yeah, so he was still in the band after Viet left. We recorded Velocity Design Comfort. It was just me and Valerie. And I think Aaron provided some tablas, a tabla beat in one of the songs. And then after VDC came out, we thought, okay, we should try to play shows again. We asked our friend Rob to join the band.
Right, that does make sense. So last question for the album. Why did you and Valerie decide to take a leap outside of the box instead of trying to perfect the sounds you had previously worked with?
Well, I think the number one thing, there are there's several reasons. I'll try to be concise. Number one, I always thought of Halika as a very expensive demo release for Sweet Trip. That also was that we got paid for, basically. Yeah. So so Halika is basically like a bunch of 4-track recordings that made it into vinyl and made it into CD, and we were like super happy about that. But that's really what it was. It was just like raw recordings that we were doing 2 years prior to the release of Halika. After Halika, I think that we just like got older. Maybe not to sound pretentious, but as you get older, tastes become a little more sophisticated.
Yeah.
And that's not like a thing. That's not like a thing that's inherent in people. It's just like exposure to things in life. So I think our taste became more sophisticated. We in the same way that we just wanted to explore and experiment and just like go completely nuts and completely out. We also had an idea of how much better we could sound like. So there's like a lack of focus and at the same time an element of focus of like the lack of focus of like, okay, what are we gonna do? We're doing all this crazy things and let's see what happens. But then the focus is more about like we're better now than we were 5 years ago. Yeah. Let's we can mix better, we can sing better, we can play better, and it was just it wasn't really a conscious VDC wasn't really a conscious effort to sound the way that it does. But it is a combination of a lot of influences. We had the shooting thing. Around the time that Halika came out, I always had this idea. I always had this idea of like shoegaze lending itself to so many more things than just a 4-piece band. And there were a few releases around the time of like the late '90s that, in a way, sort of like confirmed that for me. The first one is Bjork, Homogenic, which is not a shoegaze record.
No,
but
it's quite a art poppy record.
Yeah, like art poppy with IDM production. The second one, yeah, exactly. Yeah. The other one was a EP by the Cocteau Twins that was basically a remix. Yeah, awesome. It was basically a remix album by a remix of Cocteau Twins songs made by Seafield, and that was really really beautiful. And let's see what else. And there's another thing that in the late '90s or so, I read an article on some British magazine where Kevin Shields from My Bloody Valentine was saying that their next record was going to be a combination of Loveless with drum and bass and jungle. And I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. Yeah. But then like I waited 2-3 years and nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
I was like, oh, fuck it.
Until
I was like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
why don't you make it? Yeah.
I'm gonna steal that idea. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, he didn't release. MBV didn't come up for what? 18 years, right? No, longer. 22 years. Lovely was 91, like, right? Yeah.
I think so.
Like, and MBV wasn't like some, like, I love My Bloody Valentine. I own their vinyls. I absolutely like love My Bloody Valentine. And what I love about their music is that it's just, I feel like with a lot of the time there was just like normal shoegaze, but what Kevin Shields is doing at the time with the reverbs and the guitars on that is what, like, amazing. Like, it blows my mind. Like, Loveless is a top 5 album all time for me, easily. I love it. But what I wasn't disappointed with MBV when I listened to it. I just was expecting a little bit more to come out of, like, because with you guys also You guys released You'll Never Know Why in 2009, and then 12 years later you come in, or 11, 12 years later you come and release your latest record. Same thing with like A Tribe Called Quest. They released The Love Movement in the year 2000, year 1998. 18 years later, come back with one of the most historical comebacks in, well, musical history. Because the Five Dog had passed away, so they're like, you know, we're just gonna release this. We'll end the band here, the group. So I just feel like with MBV, I don't know. I was expecting something a little more, especially because Kevin Shields is like, or I didn't know about the album that you said, but he was like, oh, I'm figuring out. I want to do some indie rock mix, whatever. And I was like, oh, that'd sound cool because I mean, it's Kevin Shields. He could do anything, right?
Right.
I think also the EPs. People just think, oh, there's 3 albums, but you have to realize there's so many EPs that have got so many incredible tracks. Like, you know, there's you'll never realize why EP. Then there's the Tremolo, and people, and obviously they've got the main track, but they've also got other tracks within each EP, and it's quite a eclectic group of songs. And yeah, that's why I love My Bloody Valentine, and I feel like almost they kind of just passed the baton down to you guys after, yeah. I mean, I do actually have you pretty high ranked on my list. That's why I was like, you responded to my tweet of me wanting to do an interview. Anyway, enough about me fanboying. You Will Never Know Why, the 2009 album. It's a more acoustic theme, with it's still dream pop. But why switch it up to a more melancholic, bittersweet indie pop type of sound?
Several things. On a personal level, I was going through just a dark time, and so I think the theme of the record reflects that. But I think that sound wise, the reason why it sounds more straightforward and more rock, guitar oriented music, it's because I think that maybe like a year and a half or 2 years before we started recording and we released that record, I started playing the guitar a lot, and I had recently gotten into doing modifications of some of my guitar pedals, just because I didn't like how they sounded and I wanted to like see if I can make them sound better. And so like I spent a lot of time modifying a lot of pedals, and after modifying a lot of pedals, I found myself playing the guitar more often, just to test them out, to try them out, see what they sounded like. And at the same time, I just had this like I wanted to somehow improve my guitar skills, especially my bass guitar playing skills.
Yeah.
And so I was just like practicing chord progressions and trying to do weird, tricky things with chords and leads and blah, blah, blah. And I was trying to, before VDC, I always played the bass with a pick. After that, but I always wanted to like be a better finger player with my hand. And so like I was practicing that a lot. So I was like practicing a lot of guitar, a lot of bass. From a lot of the practices that I did, that I made a lot of chord progressions and cool licks and blah 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 came out, and then those practices became songs, and then those songs became what the songs on the record are. And it just sort of made sense to just keep the songs the way that they were just like leading themselves to be, as opposed to trying to force the songs to sound anything like Velocity Design covered. Believe me, like I think that I tried with maybe one song or two, and I was just thought like, okay, yeah, this is a cool song, sounds great on guitar, let's glitch it up, let's like shoegaze it up. It didn't work. So I was like, no, this is like,
honestly, let's just keep it indie pop, indie rock. Let's just keep it.
Yeah, just let it be the way they're meant to be, and let's just not be dishonest,
Yeah.
basically. And
Oh no, you go.
that's how it and that's how it happened. And also, like, there's a couple of songs in that record that were written either a little before or a little after Velocity Design Comfort. And those songs were already in my head arranged to be more traditional songs.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense to sort of like go with that theme. Just like let it be. Let it be what they are.
So we're sounding less joyful and sticking to more melodic roots. Concern for you guys, like, do you reckon there would be worried fans or others would like it because they're more known to your traditional electronic heavy production? Were you worrying that the album wouldn't piece together the same way as your other two albums, and it would kind of, you felt like it might worry your fans to see, be like, oh, I don't really like this. Were you ever worried? Because it was a pretty big change, actually.
Yeah. No, not well. I would say yes and no. No, while we were recording and writing and putting it out. Once it came out, then we thought, okay, yeah. I wonder what people are gonna think. At the same time, I don't think we had a concept of a fan base to worry about things like that at all. We were still pretty small and pretty underground. So it wasn't. It might have been a concern, maybe like a 10-15% concern.
Yeah. But
that release, but
yeah,
it was just like, we don't have millions of fans, so
yeah.
it's
So,
like, okay.
yeah.
No
So,
worries.
going on to the last album, A Tiny House and Secret Speeches, Polar Equals. So the previous, I feel like it's kind of the reunion of your couple previous albums, going back to previous electronic sounds. I feel as it's like kind of a bit of a mash of just kind of all your albums, just kind of all together. What persuaded you to go with a less experimental, but still, what persuaded you to go less experimental, kind of just stick to your original roots and just keep inside of the box that you'd already created?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number one thing for us is that our songs, we want to deliver our songs as honestly as possible.
Yeah.
Trying to experiment or add or subtract or just destroy for the hell for a novelty factor is just completely dishonest. We believe that a song sort of like dictates how it wants to sound, and you just try to service the song as best as you can.
Yeah.
And so the songs on this record are, they're very bright. Again, this is the whole thing is a love letter.
Yeah.
And I think in order to convey that emotion in those words and what the heart and the soul in those songs to that special someone, it just had to have the right. I think it just had to have the right balance of lushness.
Yeah.
And I would say like and production values, I guess.
Yeah.
For general. There was no, again, like I said, and when we were recording You Will Never Know Why, there were a couple of songs where we try to like glitchify it, and we just realized, this is just not honest, this is not us. We learned that lesson then, so that 11 years later, when we started working on this record, even knowing that Velocity Design Comfort was getting a lot of traction and a lot of people liked it, and even though we had in sort of like in the back of our head, we had that notion that people may be expecting that record again or something similar to that. We decide to always honor the songs first. And after the songs are done and recorded, which is what you guys tell us what you think of it.
Yeah. Talking about actually not talking about we weren't talking about this before. the Velvet Underground and Nico album cover, the Abbey Road album cover, the Paranoid album cover, quite iconic, well-known album covers. I hope in the future, because this is my favorite album cover I've seen the last 5, probably my favorite since the Kanye The Life of Pablo one. I think honestly I love the album cover. Where did you guys shoot it? Like, because it's quite a, yeah, where did you guys shoot it? Like the actual album cover.
Yeah, cool. I mean, first of all, like, thank you for saying that. I know we've been getting we get a lot of heat and a lot of heat and hate for the album covers. It's really nice to hear from someone who actually, seems to genuinely like it. So thank you. We had this idea. So I was watching a tiny little YouTube documentary about the wicker chair and how it appears on iconic albums from the 60s and the 70s, like especially like country records and R&B records and funk records and things. And then I showed that video to Valerie, and Valerie was like, "Ooh, that's really cool. That's really interesting. We should do that." And I said, "Okay, well, that means that we also have to like find someone to take pictures of us to make this happen." And Valerie and I, even though we might have an Instagram account and we post a lot of pictures in there, we were very hesitant about having to like spend hours with a photographer to try to get those images. So we completely scrapped it. We tried to come up with a different cover. Nothing was working out. We went back to that idea again. Valerie convinced herself that she would go and take the pictures. I said, "Yeah, okay, let's do it." Yeah. Valerie's twin sister bought a wicker chair used from someone. She brought it to her apartment. We asked our friend Sadie, who is also a photographer, if she could do the shots. And so we convened for 2 weekends. We convened into Valerie's twin sister's apartment, and we just like posed. We took pictures, and it was really fun. After that, the Darla Records designer, we sent them the pictures, and we gave him the ideas of what we wanted. We said we wanted something lush because it's a very romantic record. It's all about love and passion and things like that. And then we also had the idea of, since the title of the record was A Tiny House, in Secret Speeches, Polar Equals, because there's a lot of hidden messages on the record. We thought it would be cool to have some like hidden images on the cover itself. So when the vinyl release comes out and if people buy it, they will be able to see better some of the hidden images in the bed of roses and things like that. So that was really the story about that. It was basically like deciding to do something, not deciding to do it, deciding to do it at the end, and trying to go for something lush, kind of kitschy, a little retro, a little tongue-in-cheek, a little funny. It's a cover that means a lot to us, but at the same time, it is such a odd and funny looking cover that I find it really funny that people have so much passion over it, negative passion over it.
Yeah. So. Last question. Before we wrap this interview up, if you could call on any artist, producer, musician to do a project with you, whether that's just a small EP, a single, or a whole album, who would be that person?
Ooh, wow. I would really love to work with, like, if the Cotto Twins were still around and together, I would love to work with them. I would love to work with Seafield. And I would also like to work. There are a bunch of like older 80s, I really like 80s R&B. So it'd be kind of fun to like, if I could like travel back in time into the 80s and do production for like from a R&B artist
Yeah.
from that decade. That would be super fun. But I also like I like this. I think she's Swedish or German or Norwegian. I forget. Someone from there. Her name. I may be mispronouncing her name, but her name is Anne von Hauswolf.
I love Anne Van Halswolf. Isn't she like a sorry? Isn't she? Oh, I know. She. Hang on. I'm pretty sure it's the same person. I'm pretty sure. Hang on. I'm just. Hang on.
So,
Sorry.
really tall, blonde, mysterious-looking singer, songwriter, composer. She's amazing.
Wait, I forgot how you. Wait, how do you spell her name again? So,
So I think it's Anne with two N's.
yep.
No E, and
Yep.
Van Hauswolf. Hausw.
Van House. Hang on.
Might
Hang
be
on, I
two
could
F's
probably
at the
just do this. Hang on. I'm just because it might not be the right person I'm thinking of, and I wouldn't want to sound. Hang on.
Okay.
Hang on. Maybe it's not the same person.
Okay.
Damn. Alright, then I probably have to check. I'm pretty sure it's the same person. I don't know. Anyway, so it's been a
Well,
pleasure.
she.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
no,
thank
no,
you.
no.
That's all right. I was just gonna say
No,
that.
it's a podcast. You could just blabber off for however long you want.
Yeah, no worries. So I was just gonna say that. Yeah, that she will be. I will. I think it will be really fun to work with someone like her. Her music is really kind of like droney and doomy. It sort of has a like a doom metal quality to it that I really love. It also has like a church quality that I really
Yeah.
like because she plays the organ, and her songs are just really like kind of like witchy. They're so
Yeah. Oh
like
yeah, it is the one. Yeah, I'm thinking of. It's like it's like I don't know. It's like dark wave. It's like it's
it is. Yeah,
yeah.
it is
Oh,
kind of like
I love Dead Magic. It's like it was one of my it was a top 20 I think for 2018 for me. So
cool.
yeah. I
Yeah.
was like I'm pretty sure I've had like a high rated album from them, and then I just spelt it wrong. It's Anna von Hauswolf, and then so yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. All right. It's been it's been a pleasure having you on the show, especially for the first one, being one of my favorite artists. So yeah, thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.